For spine-chilling hotel horror stories exposed, terrifying encounters in hidden, haunted rooms. The Johnson family stepped into the Whispering Pines Hotel, a looming relic in Elmwood, a town shrouded in whispers and decay. Mark blinked against the flickering lights of the lobby, trying to shake the chill creeping up his spine. "This is just a break," he muttered, though the heavy air clung to him, thick as fog. The scent of mildew mingled with the remnants of faded floral wallpaper, a sickly sweet memory of family vacations long lost. Sarah shuddered, wrapping her arms around their daughter, Lily, who looked around with wide, curious eyes. As they settled into their gloomy room, an oppressive silence enveloped them, the kind that pressed against the chest and made every breath feel labored. The walls seemed to breathe, and the shadows twisted unnaturally in the dim light. "What is that noise?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Somewhere in the distance, muffled whispers echoed, soft and haunting, wrapping around her like icy fingers, sending ripples of dread coursing through her body. Lily tugged at the hem of her mother's shirt. "Can we explore, Mom? Please?" There was an unsettling twinkle in her eye that unnerved Sarah even more. "It's late. Let us just rest," she replied, her heart racing. But Lily was already darting toward the door, her adventurous spirit pushing her forward against her mother's apprehension. The sound of Lily's laughter faded into the dark corridor as she ran ahead. Mark and Sarah exchanged worried glances as they followed her, the air growing colder with each step. The hallway stretched into an abyss of shadows, whispering secrets they weren't meant to hear. Sarah's instincts screamed to turn back, but they pressed on. They found an old guest book tucked away in a dusty corner, the frayed pages filled with names and dates from a time when the hotel was alive. One entry caught Mark's eye. "I saw them again, the shadows behind the mirrors." His heart raced. What does that mean? The sense of danger loomed thick as they each felt prickle of unseen eyes watching their every move. Before they could contemplate further, a sudden gust of wind swept through the hotel, carrying an eerie chorus of whispered names and shushing their thoughts. "Lily," they called. Silence answered. Their daughter's giggle echoed off the walls, followed by a frigid draft that made their skin crawl. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Just as the last whispered warning died away, the lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. Panic surged in Mark as he shouted for Lily, their voices drowned in the storm that erupted outside. Walls creaked ominously around them, shadows knotted together, growing denser with every breath. Then came the chilling voice, distinct yet indistinct, creeping deep into their fears. "What have you done?" With their minds spiraling into chaos, Mark and Sarah stood on the precipice of terror, desperate to find Lily and confront what lay beneath the hotel's haunting facade. But in that harrowing moment, they realized that staying may have unleashed something even darker than they could fathom. Facing the deepest of their fears, they must race against the sinister whispers not only to save Lily but to unveil the truth woven into the very bones of the Whispering Pines. "Mark." Sarah's voice trembled, barely rising above the howling storm outside. The darkness engulfed them, and each creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. "We have to find her, we have to get out of here." "Stay calm," he urged, though his own heart was racing wildly. "Lily." He called again, desperation cracking his voice. The oppressive silence wrapped around them, thicker than ever, making it hard to breathe. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and Mark could have sworn they shifted closer, wrapping around him like a vine. He gripped Sarah's arm, anchoring her as they edged forward into the void. Every step felt like an act of treachery against their instincts, against the primal urge to flee. Somewhere, faint laughter echoed again. Lily. It was distant, teasing. It twisted his gut. Mark seized his phone, flicking on the flashlight, cutting through layers of darkness. The beam trembled in his grip, illuminating scattered debris, pressed wallpaper, and furniture draped with stale sheets. Each flicker caught the dim glow of something watching from afar. Eyes? Reflections? He didn't dare to linger on the thought. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, lined with doors that loomed like tombstones on either side. Each one felt alive, hiding secrets of their own. Suddenly, from behind one of those heavy doors, came a soft thud. Mark's pulse quickened. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, breathless. Sarah nodded, fear clouding her eyes. "It's coming from there," she pointed, her hand trembling as she turned toward the door. Mark swallowed hard and moved toward it, the beam of light trembling as it flicked across the surface. He reached for the door handle, the metal cold against his palm. "Wait." Sarah grabbed his arm, her grip tight. What if he yanked the door open before she could finish? The hinges screeched in protest, and the narrow space revealed an empty room, cloaked in shadows. Dust motes hung in the air, illuminated by the flashlight's beam. Just on the far wall, a mirror loomed, a tall, cracked structure that looked as old as the hotel itself. Mark stepped inside, drawn inexplicably toward that mirror. "Lily?" he called, but the words echoed back, mocking him. Sarah hesitated at the threshold. "Mark, please." He turned to look back at her, noting the terror etched on her face. "I'll check it, don't," she shouted, the single word slicing through the air. Just then, the mirror seemed to ripple, shadows swirling within its frame. A flicker of movement darted within. Was it Lily? "Lily!" he yelled again, desperation clawing at his throat. And in that moment, the reflection shifted. A blur of a small figure, long hair catching the light, and the echo of a child's laughter twisted into something darker. "Help me!" The voice was not Lily's, but it felt as if it crawled from the very depths of the mirror. It was chilling, filled with ancient sorrow. Mark felt his breath hitch, his flesh prickled with cold. "Get away from there!" Sarah screamed, grabbing him, pulling him back just as a shadowy hand reached out from the mirror's depths, fingers grotesque and elongated. The air thickened, a clap of thunder rattled the frame of the hotel, but they were caught in the moment, frozen like deer in headlights. Suddenly, a gust of wind exploded through the room, throwing them backward. The doorway slammed shut, sealing them within the darkness. Panic surged. "Mark!" Sarah screamed. "We're trapped." Staring into the void, eyes wide and heart pounding, Mark faced the mirror again. Within it rippled shapes, unfurling secrets and threats. He felt the whispers in his mind grow louder, pulling him closer. What lay beyond that glass? What had they awakened? In that instant, Mark knew intuitively that to find Lily, they had to confront the very darkness that hung over Whispering Pines. But could they survive the truth before it consumed them? With the shadows closing in, they braced themselves, knowing they had no choice but to face whatever evil lay beyond the mirror's edge, a horror deeper and darker than any hotel horror they could imagine. What would they uncover next? Panic coursed through Mark's veins like ice as he faced the mirror. The reflection pulsed, chaotic and writhing, each ripple a beckoning finger pulling him closer to the surface. "What is this place?" he whispered, the question slipping from his mouth like a desperate plea. "Mark. We need to think. Now." Sarah's voice broke through the pressing silence, urgency in every word. She tugged at him, but he was entranced by the haunting shapes, lost in the depths of the glass. A flicker caught his eye again. No longer just shadows, now it was a face. Pale with features distorted, it screamed silently as if trapped in a world out of reach. The room grew frigid. Goosebumps prickled on Mark's skin. He shivered, the sound of Sarah whispering his name growing distant. What if Lily is there? He murmured, transfixed, wanting to believe. Don't you see? That S not Lily. Sarah pulled him harder, her nails digging into his arm. The shadows writhed like tendrils, wrapping around her feet, trying to pull her down. Panic flared in her eyes as she fought against the invisible grasp. Mark, please. Mark stepped closer to the mirror, the flashlight beam wavered. He caught a glimpse of other figures swirling beyond the silhouettes of children, faces twisted in despair, their mouths agape. Help us, they seemed to call in a silent chorus. The air thickened, time dilating as he sank deeper into the swirling darkness. With a sudden rush of clarity, he turned back to Sarah. I can't leave her, he asserted, breathless and trembling. But inside, fear gnawed at him, tightening its grip. They could lose themselves forever in this nightmare. Look around. Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but firm. It's a trap. We can't trust what's in there. But Mark felt different. Compelled. The urge to reach into the mirror clawed at him. Behind him, the room quaked with fresh shadows, pulsating like a heartbeat. The atmosphere crackled, heavy with something malevolent. I have to know, he whispered, inching forward once more. But Sarah, desperate and resolute, yanked him back violently. He stumbled, the shock breaking his focus. Let go. She cried, tears streaming down her face. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe I have to. Mark's voice trailed off, doubt creeping in as he battled with himself while the shadows clawed at the edges of his perception. Suddenly, the mirror convulsed violently, as if shaken by an unseen force. Shadows exploded outward, and the whispered cries intensified, swirling under his skin. It felt like hundreds of hands reached out, wrapping around his throat, his legs, pulling him closer to the surface. Mark. No. Sarah screamed, but the darkness began to swallow her words. In a moment of sheer panic, he tore his gaze from the mirror. We're not going to die in this place. He shouted, but an unnatural laugh filled the room, resonating with cruel delight. The energy shifted, and for a heartbeat, he felt the ground underneath tremble, as if the hotel itself was shaking in anticipation. Then, a distant moan echoed, low and haunting, an invitation. A break in the chaos. Lily? He called, desperation lacing his tone. Before he could process it, the dark glass pulsed, and one figure, a girl with dark hair, emerged from the depth, her hand extended toward him. Help me, she cried, her voice fragmented and broken. He recognized her, but deep down, something screamed inside him that this wasn't real. Mark stared, heart racing. Was that truly Lily? Or another trap? Mark. Don't listen. Sarah yanked him backward again, but the pull felt insectal, drawing him like a magnet. In that moment, it was as if time snapped like a string, and he couldn't help but take a step forward. A crack echoed through the room, and then silence. The choice had to be made. But could they withstand the horrific revelation? Was there more hiding beneath the surface of that dark mirror than just Lily's call? As the room closed in around them, shadows converging, Mark gripped Sarah's arm tightly. Their eyes locked, determination giving way to terror. They were at a threshold of impossible choices, and whatever was lurking within the depths hungered for more than just souls. It wanted secrets. What truth awaited them in the darkened void? As the shadows thickened, a chill settled in Mark's bones. A thunderous drumbeat pulsed in his ears, each beat dragging him further from reason. Sarah's grip on his arm tightened, a lifeline amidst the chaos. Their eyes, wide with panic, danced over the mirrored surface, drawn to the spectral girl. Mark, she gasped, her voice trembling, if that's Lily, she wouldn't call for help like that. It's wrong. But the depths of the mirror began to shift with fluid grace. The girl's face twisted, her once familiar features now a grotesque mask of agony. Help me, she begged again, her voice a haunting echo that rattled off the walls. Mark couldn't move. The spectral energy surrounding him felt like a magnet, electrifying every nerve. "I have to try," he whispered, a mantra to drown out Sarah's cries. "Please," she begged, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Don't give in. We need to get out of here." A gust of wind flooded the room, a violation, interrupting the suffocating atmosphere and sending debris flying. The light flickered, dimming to an ominous red hue that warped the room around them. The girl's hand remained outstretched, trembling as if caught between two worlds. One step forward followed another. The air crackled. "Mark!" Sarah cried out, anguish piercing through the tension as she felt the shadows pull at her ankles, seeking to cut her free from the tangible world. "You're losing yourself. Don't let it take you." But that girl, the distorted reflection of hope, was closer now, her eyes pleading but filled with something darker. Fear gnawed at the corners of Mark's heart. What if she wasn't just a trap? What if she was a warning? In that moment, the hotel shuddered again, and a resonant wail echoed from the mirror, filling the room with despair. It was as if the whole building groaned in response, the walls vibrating with desperation, craving an end to the suffering trapped within. Shadows curled from the corners, swirling around them like a living thing, hungry for their fear. A spine-chilling realization cut through Mark's thoughts. What if all those other faces, what if they're trapped here too? The shadows intensified, swirling with a frenzy, and a cacophony of distorted whispers enveloped them, each word a jagged knife. Join us," they pleaded, offering the promise of release from the nightmare. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs as he fought the urge to scream. "Mark!" Sarah's frantic voice broke through once more. She lunged, pulling him back with desperate force. "We don't have to face this alone. We can't trust them." But a weight settled in Mark's chest. Was this really an illusion? The panic in Sarah's eyes urged him to fight against the encroaching darkness. He turned, ready to flee, but the reflection twisted again, sucking his breath, no longer a plea, but a violent demand. "Help us!" It screamed, reverberating through the air like a death knell. Shadows moved, threading like tendrils, intertwining with reality until everything was washed in an indistinguishable blend of torment and longing. They were on the brink, snapped between the reality they knew and this bottomless void that promised answers and threats all at once. "Mark, we're going to make it out," Sarah shouted, pulling him closer, encasing them both in a fragile circle against the overwhelming dark. "We need to find a way to turn this energy back." Suddenly, the girl's figure flickered, caught in torment, as if her very essence battled against the dark. "The secret must be revealed," she gasped again, her voice warping with pain. Desperation surged through Mark as he looked to Sarah. What if revealing the truth unlocks a way out? He mused, half to himself, half to her. "We'll figure it out together," she assured fiercely, despite the mounting tension. But before Mark could respond, a violent burst of energy erupted, splitting the mirror. Shards flew, luminous and sharp, teleporting the room into cold chaos. An immense shadow loomed behind Sarah, blacker than the abyss itself, a clawed hand reaching for her. "Sarah!" Mark reached, but his cries drowned in a flood of darkness as reality warped. The seductive whispers grew louder, a symphony of despair cajoled them both to surrender. Join us," it taunted, and Mark felt the grip of the abyss around his throat. What dark truth lay hidden within those whispers? Would confronting it bring salvation, or doom? The hotel trembled with their cries, and as the darkness surged, one question hung heavy in the air, ripe with dread: could they escape the haunted grasp of a past that refused to let go? A sharp scream pierced through Mark's mind, a chilling reminder of Sarah's peril. The room spun, the walls throbbed, and the oppressive shadow surged forward like a tidal wave of despair. Instinct kicked in. He surged toward Sarah, the distance feeling like an eternity, breath stolen by fear. "Mark! Help!" Her voice, frantic, was barely audible above the cacophony. He raced, heart slamming in his chest. The shadows twisted into claw-like shapes, reaching for Sarah, eager to drag her into the depths. Mark grabbed her arm, yanking her away just as the shadow brushed her ankle, eliciting a chilling gasp. "We need to get out. Now." He could barely think over the rising panic. Yet as they stumbled back, the shattered mirror gleamed ominously, shards glinting like daggers. With each heartbeat, he felt a pull, something drawing him back. A voice whispering urgently, weaving promises through the chaos. "Join us," it coaxed, tauntingly sweet. "Don't listen," Sarah shouted, her eyes wide with worry. "Mark, it's a trap." They tore past the mirror, bursting into the dimly lit hallway outside. But even in the corridor, an unnatural stillness loomed. The air thickened, heavy with dread. A flicker of movement caught Mark's eye. Figures flickered in and out of view against the far wall, their faces twisted in agony, mouths open like silent screams. "What the hell?" Mark gasped, stumbling backward. "They're trapped here," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Just like the girl, as if in response, the figures began to converge, shadows coiling around them, whispering secrets wrapped in despair. "Release us," they murmured, voices choking with longing for freedom. The hotel felt alive, its walls pulsating, as if sharing in the torment of the souls it imprisoned. "Mark, we can't stay here." Sarah's gaze darted around, panic overriding her rational thoughts. "We have to find a way outside." But hesitation gnawed at Mark. What if the truth is in here? What if he hesitated, a thought taking hold? What if knowing their stories is the key? A gust swept through, throwing him back against the wall. The whispers turned frantic. "Help us! Help us!" The sound swelled to a maddening crescendo, clawing at his sanity. "Mark! Please!" Sarah's voice cut through the noise, urgent and raw. Driven by fear, she lunged for the staircase at the end of the hall, shadowy hands reaching out to grasp her. He hesitated, caught between terror and a strange compulsion. But then, the weight of everything hit him, the memories of laughter, of friendship, of promises made long ago. He thrust himself after her, wrapping protective arms around her waist as they barreled down the dim staircase. With each step, the whispers grew louder, maddening, crashing against his mind like waves. The secret revealed the truth. It felt like a riddle wrapped in torment. Voices merged, morphing into a singular, desperate scream. Bursting through a door, they stumbled into a ballroom entrapped in dust and shadows. Ornate chandeliers hung above, flickering faintly, casting distorted shapes across the walls. In the center, a spectral figure swayed, lost in an anguished waltz. "Lily?" Mark gasped, recognition striking his heart. But her gaze turned to him, and the pain reflected in her eyes almost shattered him. "Help me set us free." Her body twisted unnaturally, caught in some eternal suffering. "Mark, we can't stay." She's not herself. Sarah pulled at his shirt, breath coming in desperate gasps. But the room's atmosphere shifted. Shadows had taken form, shape rising up from the corners, dozens of faces he recognized, ghosts of the hotel. Revelations twinkled through the horror, filling his mind with images of their past, trapped in eternal longing. "Please release us," they pleaded. As dread hung thick in the air, Mark felt something snap within him, a choice buried beneath layers of fear. This place thrived on secrets and pain. But what if freeing them came at a cost? A price too great to bear? What will it take? Mark shouted, their cries amplifying, drowning out his reason. At that moment, the energy shifted. The walls trembled. A silhouette emerging from the chaos. A new figure, darker than the collective horror, loomed above them. "Release the truth," it hissed, its voice rumbling like thunder. Mark's heart raced. Could he bear the weight of unveiling what lay locked within? Or were the souls trapped here forever? As shadows clutched at him, the whispers intensified, swirling in a tempest. One question recoiled in his mind: what truth was worth sacrificing for freedom? The room trembled, shadows thickening into a suffocating landscape. Mark's breath hitched as he felt the weight of countless gazes pressing in on him. The spectral figure of Lily hung in the air, twisting and writhing, her agony palpable. "Do you really want to know?" The dark figure coiled closer, its voice slicing through the tension like a razor. "To pull back the veil? To see what lies buried beneath?" "Mark." Sarah's voice quaked, pulling at the fraying edges of his sanity. "We have to leave. We can't help them, not like this." But the desperation clawed at him. What if there was another way? "Tell me." Mark shouted into the chaos. "What must I do?" The shadows lurched forward, their whispers morphing into a singular, piercing cry. "Unravel the truth, unveil your darkest fears." Their collective anguish vibrated in the air, echoing within him, a cold dread welling up in his gut. "What if I can't?" The doubt spilled from his lips, each word a crack in his resolve. He felt like a marionette, strings pulled taut by forces beyond his control. Fear writhed through him, entwining with an unsettling anticipation. Sarah's grip tightened around his arm. "Mark, don't. This can't end well." The ballroom shifted, walls bending, romance drowning in terror. One moment they were in an elegant space, and the next, it warped into something grotesque, a nightmare painted in shadows. Candles lit with unnatural flames flickered ominously, casting elongated shadows against the walls that writhed as if alive. Lily's figure leaned closer, her haunted eyes boring into his. "To save them, you must confront your past, your regrets, the reason this place exists." Her voice dripped with sorrow, mingling with the hungry whispers of the other trapped souls. "Your truth is shackled in fear," the dark figure taunted, looming larger with every passing heartbeat. With every second he hesitated, the shadows grew bolder, swirling around Sarah, tugging at her hair, her clothes, their cold fingers easing toward her with sinister intent. Panic ignited within Mark, a wildfire of fear. "No!" he shouted, stepping forward defiantly. "Let her go." The shadows paused, as if his command carried weight. The moment hung heavy, silence stealing through the ballroom like a predator closing in. But the figure didn't need to make demands, he felt dread beyond dread, shifting like a storm. "Face yourself or lose her." The snap echoed harshly. Mark's pulse thundered in his ears. He had to make a choice now. Could he face whatever haunted him? There was no turning back. He could already feel the dread of buried memories creeping forth, clawing to escape. "I'm not afraid," he bluffed, though his insides coiled with terror. The swirling shadows hesitated once more. Then, find the truth. A sudden flash of memories surged through Mark, a lost friend, whispers of betrayal, a promise broken. The faces of those he had let down flickered into view, swirling in and out with cruel laughter. The ballroom transformed, moments from the past twisted into tangible forms, encircling him like the tempest of ghosts longing for release. "No, I can't." But as he spoke, shadows leaned in, intertwining with the screams of souls lost to despair. Each whisper opened a door to regret, urging him to fold into the darkness. Mark felt himself fracturing, teetering on the brink. "Mark." Sarah's voice was a lifeline, but it felt far away, muffled by the chaos. "You have to fight it." He blinked against the flood of memories, grasping at reality. He could either surrender to the whispers, or dig deep and confront the horrors buried within. "Do I have to face the truth?" he yelled into the maelstrom. "What will happen if I do?" The reply came, a cacophony of moans and echoes, their desperation overwhelming. "Find your truth or be lost in our suffering forever." Desperation churned in his stomach. Time was slipping, and shadows were closing in. He had only one shot. "Tell me, what do I have to face?" The response was a silent roar, a promise of chaos, a haunting plea both tempting and terrifying. Mark's heart raced as the weight of his decision settled heavily. Was he ready to confront the monster within? Or would he lose himself, entangled in the shadow's grip? With resolve tightening his chest, he took a shaky step forward, bracing against the walls, trembling with despair. "Show me all at once," the room erupted, the shadows snapping like whips, closing in, ready to spill forth the twisted truth. Suddenly, an icy silence wrapped around him, even the whispers fell into a hushed expectancy. What horrors awaited him in the depths of his own soul? What truth lay buried there? Darkness enveloped him as the shadows surged, swallowing every flicker of light. Mark stood on the brink of despair, the room pulsating with an unnerving energy. It felt as if the walls themselves were alive, breathing in their torment. He had declared his intention to confront the beast within, yet fear clawed fiercely at his insides, threatening to drag him back into oblivion. In a shocking instant, memories ripped through him like shards of glass. Faces swirled before his eyes, his younger self, smiling, a friend whose laughter echoed now only as a hollow sound, a betrayal that festered like an unhealed wound. Panic gripped his throat, choking him. Lily's apparition loomed closer, her eyes filled with a bottomless sorrow. "Do you see them? They are part of you. You cannot save them until you save yourself." Mark staggered back as the shadows writhed, sending icy tendrils round his ankles. No. Not now. The darkness was pulling him into its depths, whispering half-forgotten fears that threatened to swallow him whole. "I can't," he gasped, his voice barely escaping his throat. "Embrace it." The dark figure loomed, too vast to comprehend, its form shifting and warping like melted wax. "Remember who you are and what you've done." He closed his eyes, trying to block it all out, but 1,000 different memories struck him like flashes of lightning. The night the fire took everything: his home, his family. "I didn't mean to," the words escaped him, a weak confession drowned in the cacophony of anguished cries. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos like a desperate lifeline. "Mark. You're stronger than this. Fight." Summoning every ounce of will, he took a step forward, clutching onto Sarah's echo. "I'm here. I will face it." The shadows shifted, momentarily retreating as if sensing his resolve. "Face your guilt." The voice echoed, cracking through the veil of shadows, a command that resonated within him. Everything tightened: his heart, his chest, as a black storm raged against the walls of his mind. With every blink, his past loomed larger. The guilt, the regret, it was all there, a swarm of dark memories ready to consume him. He recalled the day his friend, Alex, had stood at the edge, drunk on disappointment and high on despair, told him he'd change, only to succumb to the night, lost in fate's cruel hands. "Alex." Mark whispered, his heart splintering. He had chosen to ignore the warning signs. Clarity hit him like a punch to the gut. He hadn't saved him. How could he save anyone else? A sob racked through him, but he steadied himself. "I should have been there." "Yes." The dark figure hissed, its form shifting into a wave of tormented souls. "Let it out, Mark. Scream your suffering." The shadows surged back with ferocity, circling tighter, wrapping chaos around him like a funeral shroud. Mark knew this was the storm before the calm, the pact he needed to break free. "I am not afraid," he shouted, and the words trembled but held a fiery spark. "I acknowledge my pain." The wailing crescendo intensified, the souls crying louder, twining around him, a mass of collective grief. Each layer of darkness peeled back as the truth bared its teeth, gnashing through the shadows. And then it struck a blinding white light. The shadows recoiled, and the dark figure shrieked. "Face it." Mark screamed again, urged forward by the surge of adrenaline. The memories flowed through him once more, colliding with renewed force. He couldn't be happy without acknowledging this grief first. Sarah's voice was a dim glow. "You're doing it, Mark. Keep going." And then, with one last surge of courage, Mark confronted the turning point in his life. I was too late. I should have saved you, Alex. I'm sorry. His words pierced the suffocating air, they fell heavy, and the shadows howled in fury. In that moment of revelation, a surge of warmth enveloped him, illuminating everything around, a blinding truth breaking through the darkness. Mark felt the weight slip from his shoulders, the cacophony morphing into a soft hum. But freedom was fleeting. The dark figure shifted again, more menacing than ever, cloaked in rage. You have opened lines best left closed. You think you've won? A shiver ran down Mark's spine. He glanced at Sarah, wonder mingled with dread. What happens now? The shadows writhed around them, swirling as if forming a dark whirlpool, eager to claim what they had lost. Would this moment of clarity be the end or just the beginning? And as the whispers returned, louder, more insistent than before, the haunting question lingered: could he fight off the darkness that now wove itself closer, more entwined than ever? The room trembled again, and he knew the battle had just begun. Mark's heart raced, pounding against his chest like a wild thing desperate for freedom. The warmth that had enveloped him began to fade, dissipating into the shadows that twisted around him. He could feel the overwhelming heaviness return. The darkness wasn't finished with him. It surged like an ocean tide, and he struggled against its pull. Mark. Sarah's voice broke through the din, a lifebuoy in the storm. We have to find a way out. Out? He echoed, the word barely escaping between gasps. There's nowhere to go. It's everywhere. He gestured helplessly at the formless black mass inching closer, coiling like snakes, eager to strike. Suddenly, the shadows split apart. A figure began to emerge, tall, cloaked, its features hidden beneath the hood. Mark's breath hitched. What is that? He instinctively stepped back, but the wall pressed against him, firm, unforgiving. The apparition raised an arm, and Mark felt cold tendrils snake around his throat, tightening, squeezing. You opened me up, it hissed, voice echoing like a twisted mockery of his own. You invited me back. No. I didn't. His words drowned in panic, struggling against the grip tightening like vice on his neck. Your fear fuels me, it crooned, the air turning viscous as if every breath would choke him. You brought them here. You will suffer with them. In that moment, a floodgate burst within him. Memories flooded back, horrible visions of that night, the sounds of flames crackling, people screaming, his frantic heart racing as he tried to pull his family from the encroaching shadows. I didn't mean, Mark sputtered. Deny it all you like. The figure leaned closer, shadows pouring from its being, taking shape. Faces twisted in torment emerged, distorted, mangled forms. Alex's eyes stared back at him, those once bright, now hollow and dark. No! Mark screamed, fighting against the icy fingers at his throat. Desperation clawed at him. I want to let you take me. He finally grasped the weight of his grief and harnessed it like a weapon. I accept it. The dark figure shrieked, a sound that splintered the air. The shadows quivered, almost in fear. Mark felt the grip around his throat ease, as if acknowledging his acceptance. Good, the figure hissed, its voice slithering through the cracks of his resolve. Embrace your pain. You are weak without it. Without these memories, you are nothing. No! Mark shouted, lurching forward. You are the thing that holds me back. You think you can scare me? You think I'm afraid? I refuse to be your puppet. In that instant, the warm light began to surge from within him again. It burned through the darkness, illuminating the contours of the room. The shadows distanced themselves, writhed in agony as the truth of his sorrow burned brighter than fear. No! The figure screeched, rage and despair mingling, birthing a palpable tension in the air. You think you found freedom? You are still mine. Mark pressed the light outwards, pushing against the darkness, willing it away from him. But the whispers returned stronger, more insistent, clawing at his mind. You took too long, Mark. You let them die. Are you really ready for what's next? The sound of a heartbeat thumped in his ears, a relentless drum echoing every moment of doubt. He glimpsed the rage spiraling within the hooded figure, and a chilling thought froze his blood. What are you saying? He stammered, breathless. A low chuckle echoed throughout the room. The choice was never yours to make. The horror lies ahead. You cannot escape your past. You will pay, and those you care for will suffer for it. Do you see it now? Mark felt a rush of cold wash over him. The shadows lengthened, taking on menacing forms around him once again, as if he had walked into the very heart of despair. Fear gripped him anew. What is happening? Your fight is just beginning, Mark. More than memories haunt these walls, much worse awaits. The figure dissipated into a cloud of gloom, leaving a lingering echo of laughter. Mark glanced at Sarah, her eyes wide with terror. What did it mean? Before he could finish his question, the lights flickered. The darkness shifted again, swirling around them like a hungry beast. And there, in the eerie silence that followed, he felt it, an ominous presence lurking, waiting for him to lower his guard. Sarah, his voice barely a whisper, filled with dread as the shadows began to coalesce once again, taking form, shifting closer. Was this truly just the beginning? Or was he already too late? Mark's pulse quickened as the darkness writhed and contorted, a living entity that seemed to breathe with malevolent intent. The shadows, once formless, now became grotesque figures, twisted and hungry, reaching out with claw-like appendages. Each movement was deliberate, and each flicker of light the dying bulbs overhead shone briefly before plunging them into deeper gloom. Sarah's grip on his arm tightened. What do we do? Her voice quavered, a thin thread of courage struggling against the rising tide of dread. We fight, Mark replied, though his voice felt uncertain, distant, echoing against his own rising panic. The warmth within him flickered like the dying lights above. Could he spark it to life again? With clenched fists, he faced the darkness. I won't let you take us. His words caught the shadows off guard, darting backward for a heartbeat, holding their breath. He inhaled deeply, trying to summon the warmth that he had felt before, the light that had pushed the shadows away. But doubt clawed at the edges of his resolve, gnawing at his spirit. Please, not again. The ominous laughter returned, a chorus of echoes that circled around him. You think you're the only one who feels the weight of the past? It sneered, drawing closer. You have no idea what lurks in the depths. You cannot hope to comprehend the horrors waiting for you. A shiver raced down Mark's spine. What was waiting? Would it rise from the shadows, dragging them into oblivion? Sarah. He turned to her, his heart pounding in time with the shrill laughter that reverberated through his head. We need to get out now. But as he looked around, the room shifted again. The walls he thought he understood began to warp, distorting his sense of reality. What had been a solid room was now a labyrinth of nightmares, each corner a possibility of something ancient and wicked lurking just out of sight. What is happening? Sarah's voice trembled, growing fainter. I don't know. Mark shouted, feeling the darkness close in, almost suffocatingly thick. Stay close to me. The last of the trembling lights flickered out. A freezing silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. An eerie calm settled in. But then, a scraping sound sliced through the void, like nails clawing across a blackboard. Mark's breath halted. Did you hear that? It's them, Sarah whispered, eyes darting to and fro, glimmers of terror flooding her features. What do we do? But before he could respond, a flicker caught his eye. A shadow appeared, lurking where the air swept dangerously cold. A figure stepped out as if born from the darkness itself, a gaunt specter, bones protruding, eyes glowing with a sinister light. It was not just a shadow, it was a fully formed figure, a malevolence he could physically feel. The whispers flooded back, invading his mind, assaulting his thoughts. You brought this on, Mark. You doomed us all. Can you not see how it unfurls? Stop! Mark shouted, the sound echoing into the void, but it felt feeble against the overwhelming wave of despair that crashed over him. I demand to know what you want. His voice cracked, desperation mingling with a flicker of defiance. The specter smiled, revealing jagged teeth. We want your fear, and we will take everything from you. As it lunged forward, the room began to twist violently. Mark could hardly keep his footing, shadows surged, searching for weakness, for a crack in his spirit. And then the flickering lights returned, only to reveal something that made his heart drop. Standing behind the specter were faces he recognized, twisted remnants of people he loved. Their eyes were full of anguish and, for the briefest moment, he thought he might scream or run. But he stood firm, feeling the light within him rising again, having felt it once before. He took a step forward. I want to let you have them. No, the specter's voice chilled the air. You've only just begun to understand the pain that binds us. He had no idea what he truly faced. The shadows thickened, and Mark felt the air grow even heavier, a storm surrounding him, his inner light struggling against the vast darkness. Could he dim the fear that loomed? Suddenly, Sarah cried out. Mark! Behind you! He spun, heart racing, as the shadows converged, the specter's laughter echoing through his mind, drowning out rational thought. Whispers flooded back in cruel mockery. Can you save them? Can you save yourself? And in that defining moment, Mark realized he was not fighting just for escape. He was fighting the very essence of his past. Behind him, the dark crescendo reached a terrifying peak. The true horror was yet to come. But could he confront it, or would he finally succumb? As the last flame of light flickered, Mark felt the world shift, time stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. What would he uncover in the endless void? What haunted terrors awaited? Mark's heart thundered in his chest, the entire world falling away with nothing but the gathering shadows remaining. He could hardly register Sarah's frantic pleas beside him, everything merged into one overwhelming force, and fear felt like a living entity, clutching at his throat. I want to let you take us. He shouted into the void, the words stirring something deep inside him, igniting his resolve. The specter loomed larger, jealousy sparking in its hollow, glowing eyes, a reflection of the turmoil within himself. Your resistance is futile, it hissed, swirling shadows that crackled with menace. You invited despair into your life. It thrives on your choices, on your regrets. No! He cried, forcing every ounce of power into his voice. Each syllable pulsed like a heartbeat, rhythmically fighting back against the encroaching darkness. My past doesn't define me. I embrace my truth. The shadows recoiled for just a moment. In that fleeting second, Sarah's grip tightened around his arm, her eyes fierce with belief, spurring him on. You can do this, Mark. You are stronger than it thinks. The ground trembled again, and horror surged within him. I have made mistakes, horrible mistakes. He roared, forcing the memories to the forefront of his mind. The flames of that night, the desperation, the feeling of helplessness enveloped him. Embrace it. The specter hissed, mocking his pain. Relive it. The memories flooded in again, more vividly than ever. Mark saw Alex, panic-stricken, carelessly wading through flames of regret. He felt the gut-wrenching sensation of being too late to save him. The guilt clawed at him, suffocating, but he grasped it tightly this time instead of turning away. I acknowledge my failures. He shouted, feeling the pulse of power in his voice growing stronger. I carry them, but they do not carry me. I am more than this. The specter shrieked, an unearthly cry that surged like an ocean wave crashing against the shore. As if acknowledging his defiance, the shadows writhed, their forms twisting and distorting as if torn between conflicting forces. Then face what you've done. It yelled, shadows swirling, conjuring nightmare images before his eyes, the faces of the lost, the echoes of their pain taking form. But instead of crumbling under the reminder, Mark steeled himself. "I won't let your pain make me weak." The words burst forth, hot and fierce. "You will not win." A blinding light exploded from within him, forcing its way through the darkness, peeling fragments of the solid shadow apart. Sarah stood beside him, her determination amplifying the light as it surged outward. "Together," she cried, her voice slicing through the blackness like a beacon. "We can break this." With renewed courage, Mark grasped onto that warmth, forging a bond that kindled the magic between them. A luminescent wave pushed through the encircling shadows, causing them to falter and dim. Mark surged forward, and with a roar, he plunged into that vortex of memory and emotion, ready to release all that he carried. "I forgive you," he whispered, his voice steady but soft, drowning out the echoes of despair. "I forgive myself. I accept my flaws and my past. They are part of me, but I am no longer a prisoner." The spectre's face twisted in rage, the shadows erupting in a screech of anguish. Mark and Sarah stood unwavering, hands clasped together, light radiating around them, each pulse reinforcing their strength. The room crackled with energy, and tendrils of darkness reached out, but they fell away like ashes in the wind, their power hold unraveling before their eyes. "No!" The spectre howled, its form flickering as it began to dissolve. "You cannot escape. This is your home now." With a brilliant flash, their combined light forced the shadows apart, the boundaries of the darkness shattered like glass, revealing the truth within. As the echoes of lost souls began to rise, they transformed from anguished figures to ethereal wisps, their sorrow dissipating into the air, merging with the radiance Mark and Sarah emanated. "Yes. We're free." Mark breathed, his heart roaring as the shadows melted away, the truth washing over him. Out of the depths, from the lost souls, came a wave of relief, a newfound understanding, a gentle acceptance of what had been. The hotel trembled, radiant warmth spilling through the dark hallways, illuminating old memories, laughter that once echoed in the air, the vibrant colors of joy mingling with the loss. Mark found himself in a space that was no longer a prison but a reminder. The spectre dissipated into a fragile mist, its last cries softened by the enveloping glow. The ballroom filled with the spirits of the past, now released from the shackles that had bound them, their faces serene. "Thank you," a whisper emerged from the luminous crowd, a symphony of gratitude resonating within the walls of Whispering Pines. "Let go," another echoed softly. Mark stepped forward, heart steadfast, feeling powerful bonds of love embracing the space where once there was pain. As the last shadows receded, the hotel came alive with renewed vibrancy, the air light and pure. While the memories and regrets would never vanish, they no longer bore the same depth of despair. Instead, they wove a tapestry of growth, a testament to the journey and what it meant to be free. "Let us go home," Sarah murmured, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips as the sun broke through the window, flooding the room with life. Mark held her close, threading their fingers together, a promise hanging in the air. They turned, facing the open doors that led away from that haunted past, a fresh start awaiting them beyond. As they stepped out into the light, the shadows of Whispering Pines retreated, leaving them with echoes of hope that whispered of brighter tomorrows. And just like that, they emerged from the deception hidden within the haunted walls, anchored in strength, wiser for the journey they had endured. A new chapter awaited, filled with the promise of healing and renewal. As they stepped onto the warm asphalt of the driveway, the weight of their past softened into mere memories, and with one last glance back at the hotel, they whispered a silent farewell to the fear that had once consumed them. With the sun shining brightly on their faces, they walked away, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep us going. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this chilling conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this finale. Only true fans understand the importance of sticking together, so let us make this community stronger.